Welcome to another episode of Shots from the Winchester podcast, where we explore leadership topics from a variety of perspectives. This podcast is brought to you by Greencastle Consulting, your nation's premier strategy execution firm. Matthew Knowles. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the show, for one, because I know you sit right outside of the podcast room, and you probably hear us in here joking and laughing and stuff like that. I can see you sad over there and wanting to be in here.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I literally sit right outside the room, like you said, so it's actually kind of ironic that now I'm on the podcast. Yeah, this is great.
This is fun. I wanted to get into this conversation with you because, like, we're military here. We're not military. We're veterans. We're also some of us are still serving in reserves and what have you. Some of us have gotten out. You were in Skillbridge, and you came in. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey coming in from Skillbridge into Greencastle?
Yeah, so I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. Mm-hmm. My good friend Scotty Hop, he works here at Greencastle.
Yeah.
Me and him were actually stationed at the same unit together.
Oh, that's cool.
At Seaburf down in Southern Maryland.
Yeah.
So he told me about this opportunity, and he's doing really well right now. He told me how he loves the culture here, the people here.
Yeah.
So I told him, that's something I'd be interested in giving a shot. So
nice.
Gave it a try, did my Skillbridge, got hired on as a W-2, and the rest is history. Definitely love the culture here, love the work, work to life balance that there is, and it just has helped me excel as somebody. When I was in the military, it's just you kind of get to a point where I feel like you kind of peak out in a certain role.
Yeah.
And it's not like you just get promoted as soon as you peak out. Sometimes you kind of sit in that role for a little while.
Yeah.
Whereas here, it's like as soon as you kind of peak out in a certain role, then you move up, automatic. So you're just constantly striving to do better, striving to, improve yourself. And you have all these people that are also trying to do that. So just makes a really nice blend of culture, and everyone here is just great,
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those places. We had a conversation a couple of episodes ago where we were talking about consultancy stigmas. And one of the things that both Amanda and Kate mentioned was how the culture here for work-life balance is so much better than a lot of other places that do consultancy work, given that some people don't want to travel all the time, don't want to be on the road constantly. You don't get to see your family in a lot of cases, but here it's different. We're very family first people here at Greencastle, which is good and unique in its own sense. And then with everyone here being a veteran and everything like that, that's why I wanted to get into this conversation with you about what the military teaches us about success, because I think that balances out what we do here at Greencastle as far as doing what we do with some of our clients, and just putting that importance out, especially if there's somebody that's a potential client that's looking at our podcast, looking at our content, looking at our website. It's like, what makes these guys unique? Well, that military angle definitely makes us unique. And one of the things that makes us successful is the fact that we're veterans, and we have been put in positions where we're just randomly inserted into a situation where we now have to figure it out on the fly, and sometimes pretty quickly, because the situation on the ground could get weird and change very fast. So with that unique skill set, I think that makes us very competitive because of that angle, and I think that's important. So when we're talking about high performing, we're talking about military teams, people who are doing work in the field. And how does that compare to the professionalism that we see in an office place right now?
I would say kind of some key leadership qualities is you have to recognize your own strengths and weaknesses. I think that's definitely first and foremost. If you don't recognize what you're good at and what you're bad at, then you can't actively improve yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I think it goes hand in hand in the military and in the business world. I was doing that. I'm doing the same thing right now as a consultant as I was in the military. I evaluate myself. I see what I do well and constantly improve that. And I also recognize what I don't do well with. We do peer reviews. We had peer reviews, or we did fitness reports in the military, and we also do the same thing here in the business world. You get evaluated by your team leader, or you have somebody that kind of adds like a checks and balance in there,
right?
Because obviously everyone would just like to say, oh, I'm the best at everything. Everyone would love to just say that, but fortunately that's not always the case.
Right.
But you have that checks and balance. You have that first line supervisor that will evaluate you and tell you what to improve on, so that way you can take those steps and improve yourself.
Yeah. That's important to know. I think delegating is a really important aspect of like military versus business. In the military, we delegate responsibilities down the chain of command. And same in corporate offices. I think in a corporate office, you have a chain of command still there, but nobody's jumping the chain of command, in the military. And I think this is similar kind of consistency in business too, like trying not to jump that chain of command. You can ruffle some feathers, and then understanding what you're good at and what you're bad at, and then knowing who is good at that, and then bringing that in and building that team strong. And it's one of the things they say here is like putting the right people in the right seat.
Yeah, I mean, it goes hand in hand. You got to know your own strengths and weaknesses. Your supervisor has to know your own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
When you're given a task or a mission, you cater the decisions and the team and everything based off those strengths and weaknesses to give yourself the highest odds of success.
Yeah.
Like why wouldn't you want to give yourself the highest odds of success?
Right.
And that goes in the military and it goes in the consulting world,
Right.
In GAC, if we need somebody for a new role, they're screened to see if they're, if they can fit that role, so that way they could be successful. And if they're not, then, we're not going to put somebody in that role and set them up for failure.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that leads me into adaptability. Like when we're in the military, we adapt to situations pretty quickly, and I don't know your experience, especially now that you're in a civilian capacity, of adaptability. And I know it's different here because we're all cut from the same cloth. But like in business, people have a tendency of having a hard time adapting to things. This is one of the reasons why we have a change of management here at Greencastle. This is what we go into a client's business and help them with that change, because I think adapting to new technology and adapting to new standards is difficult for people. How would you say adapting in the military can help with the success of a civilian business? Like,
I would say, when being in the Marine Corps, or just in the military, you might be given a task and you might not have all the resources that you need to achieve that task. But if you tell your supervisor or your CO or anybody that you don't have enough resources, you know what they're going to tell you? I don't get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to figure it out.
right.
Same thing happens, in the civilian world. You don't want to tell your supervisor that you don't have the resources to be successful. So you have to find a way to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
I think for me, I bridge that gap by just relying on the team that I have, here at GAC. I talk to a lot of people, that went through the same situations that I went through, talk to them, see what adversity they went through, what was hard for them, what was easy for them. You really just have to rely on the people around you. People don't like asking for help.
Yeah.
But the best way to be adaptable and to excel yourself is to ask for help, and if you don't have a culture that you can't ask for help, then that's, in my view, I don't think that's a very good culture. I think that's what makes Greencastle so unique in my eye. I could go to Joe Crandall, which for the viewers, that's our CEO, and I could ask him, for help on something, and he would help me out. And I'm like probably most junior person here at the company right now, and that's just the culture that's ingrained here, and that's why everyone's so successful.
I agree. I think that having that ability to ask questions and get those clear answers, or at least even being directed into the right place to get those answers, is really important. And in other businesses where it seems more competitive, where people are like, trying to outperform each other in more of a competitive environment, whereas that's not the way it works here. Like, we're competitive. We like playing games, with each other. Like, like we had the Mario Kart thing
Yeah,
last.
Mario Kart was pretty cutthroat.
But like, when it comes to business, we're sharing information. We're making sure that everybody's successful, because like, if everyone's successful, the whole business is successful, and I think that's the core of it. So that's good as far as coming like to adaptability and everything like that. How do you feel like emotional intelligence plays into this? Now, I had a conversation with Mike Smith a couple of weeks ago, and we had a whole conversation about emotional intelligence and how important it is to have a balance of like understanding, read the room when you're walking in.
No, I mean, I think emotional intelligence is very important. You have to be able to, I think, first and foremost, control your emotions.
Yeah.
That can be, easy for some and hard for others. I think having emotional intelligence it just helps you be more successful.
Yeah.
In a lot of different scenarios. If you walk into a room and nobody's talking to you or anything like that, and it's like something serious is going on, then maybe you shouldn't go in there and talk to everyone and bring up a bunch of stuff that's not going on or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
It's just being able to read the room.
Right.
I think it's key to just being able to progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think emotional intelligence too. Like there's a kind of a time and a place for everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you go up to your boss and you can tell he's mad,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you should let him cool down a little bit. If you go up to your boss and he's sad,
Yeah.
maybe being a friendly person to comfort him or something.
Yeah.
It's it can really just help you
Mm-hmm.
to either de-escalate a situation or even help a situation.
Right. What strategies can leaders use to instill a culture of ownership and responsibility within their teams?
I think that, being a leader, you have to lead from the front. I think that's something you especially learn in the military with like officers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They just have a standard that is just very high. And my experience is in the Marines. All the officers, we have to run a PFT, a physical test.
Yeah.
And you have to run 3 miles within a certain time. And all the officers I ever met in the Marines would run under like a 21-minute 3 mile. And that is very hard to do.
Yeah.
Most of the enlisted guys don't do that.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes back to what I was saying, leading from the front.
Right.
We would strive to run quicker because, our officers were running quicker.
Yeah.
We wanted to run as fast as our CO or,
Yeah.
our OIC. Like we wanted to run as fast as our supervisors were. Because then you kind of foster that, are these guys better than us? We want to be as better as them. It just has a lot of positive attributes. It makes it makes a healthy competitiveness. It shows that they are expecting you to run quick, but they also run quick, which I think is very important. But yeah, I think that's very important. They're doing what they expect out of you,
Right.
And they're doing it just as well, if not better, which I think is very important.
Yeah, it is important too, because if you're barking orders with no bite and you don't have the that same drive as the people that you're trying to push to give them the same drive, it doesn't give it the same energy. It's just like, well, if you're not even doing it, it's like when you see somebody working, like an instructor, like instructing people to do stuff, and they're just standing around and looking down at you while you're doing those push-ups and stuff like that. But if they dropped down and did those push-ups, they were going to do like 70 of them in that one run, and you're like doing 20, and it's just like, it's important. Like if you're gonna stand up to the quality, you got to be the quality for them to stand up to. if you're not doing it, then saying it and being like, you need to do this, just doesn't have the same weight. You know,
Yeah,
just
no,
doesn't
it doesn't.
doesn't hold up the same way. You know, if you're not also doing it. So that's that's
That
another.
and it shows a sense that, it's not like they're just better than you.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we used to do beach cleanups when I was stationed in Okinawa,
Mm.
and sometimes I would see officers out there or, some of my higher supervisors, and
Yeah.
it inspired us that they were out there doing that with us, because it's not like, oh, we're the lower ranking people, we're just these
Mm-hmm.
lower people, they
Right.
were out there doing it with us,
Right. Yeah.
and it just makes you more motivated to want to get out there and do it, because it's not
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm just doing this because, I'm this rank or
I'm a
whatever.
grunt, and I
Yeah.
need to be like facing the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing I like about being here at Greencastle too, because like there's been some times we've gone over to Thorncroft Equestrian Center, which is they help veterans and people of or first responders using horses, like brushing the horses, riding the horses, things like that. Help them get through certain tough aspects of PTSD, things like that. And we go over there and we help clean up around there. And like I see Joe in the dirt with us, like, pulling weeds and stuff like that and cleaning up. And I'm like, that's impressive. That's impressive to see your CEO, out there doing it too, and I think that's a good quality for a leader to have, especially for a business like this or any other business out there, especially if you're a leader out there right now, if you're a manager or anything like that. Lead from the front, like you just said. Lead your people, but also be a good example for the things that you're telling them to do, and make sure you're standing up to that too. So that's a good point to take away from this.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important. I think it's, whenever we have our company meetings, our GAC days,
Yeah.
like everybody's there. Everyone's there. Everyone's involved. Everyone's putting in the effort.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not just like, I feel valued. I feel important that I'm there, because they're there too. You know
Right.
what I mean? I wouldn't tell my guys to do anything that I wouldn't go out there and help them with, and most of the time I was out there helping them with it, and it motivated them, it reassured them, it made them happier, it kind of increased morale.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. And even from a business perspective, how would you feel if, your boss just asked you to do something and then he was like, you know what, I'm not doing too much right now. Let me go over there and help you. Think about how much that would make you happy, know?
Yeah.
I mean, that would make me happy, I mean,
Yeah.
we get the task done quicker. He shows me that, or he or she, shows me that, they're not just above me.
Right.
They can come down and help me out,
Right.
and it just helps build that relationship with you and your supervisor as well, I think.
Yeah. It humanizes you too.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it's just, sometimes we can get on our heads with, like people that own the business. They can be a little intimidating, like you're that's the CEO. We can't, we got to like lock it down, and everything like that. But, and it's the same way in the civilian world as it is in the military. You just kind of like, it's not, I don't know if it's like you're in awe or not. It's just more like there's an intimidation factor of like, like there's an opportunity here that I could screw up and lose my job, or I may be disappointing to someone, and I think that's what we all think in ourselves as far as that goes, is we value ourselves. If you care about yourself, you value yourself to the point where you're like, I want to do a good job. I want to show up. I want to be the best person that I can be, and so that's all up in the air when you're like, okay, here's the CEO. I got to tighten up. I got to be like, blah, blah, But when you see them like come out and they're like in a t-shirt and like ripped jeans and they're out there like pulling the weeds like Joe was, you're like, okay. All right. It motivates you. It makes you want to do more. It makes you want to be a better person. And when you have that example, when it's your turn to be that CEO or it's your turn to be that person, that's the example that you're going to set too. So it's good to see that, and it's good to bring that and build that into other people.
Yeah, and I think that, just based off my experiences, the CEOs or bosses that I've had that will just come and talk to you like a normal human being,
Yeah.
were just more genuine and better CEOs or bosses that I've had.
Yeah.
They just inspire you and make you happy and just make you feel valued by doing that.
Yeah.
When you have that boss or CEO that comes up to you and they're like, stand at attention when I'm speaking to you, or
Yeah.
or something like that,
Yeah.
or they're just very uptight,
Right.
or it just makes an environment where you don't feel like you can go talk to them,
Yeah.
which you should have that environment,
Yeah. Yeah.
like if you're really in a tough spot and you need to talk to your boss or your CEO or somebody,
Yeah.
you should always feel like you can talk to them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and when you kind of make that abrasive, bridge, it's just,
Right.
it can just make it really hard.
It
If
does,
I was in
yeah.
a really tough spot and I felt like I needed to go talk to Joe Crandall, I know I could. He has an
Yeah.
open door policy. I know I could go talk to him.
Yeah.
If he had a different leadership style and it was like, use your chain of command, talk to your team leader and then talk to this
Yeah.
it just, you're less inclined to want to even talk to them in the first place. Now
Yeah.
all these people know, and it just
Yeah.
kind of creates a mess,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely helps foster better collaboration,
Yeah.
which is just really a pretty important aspect of, I think, what we do as consultants,
Yeah.
being able to collaborate with your team, with your peers, with people you work with. I mean, ultimately just makes you better,
Yeah.
Like when I was studying for a recent exam I just took, I was only successful because I was able to collaborate with other people here that just took that same exam.
Yeah.
I was able to collaborate with them, see what worked well with that, what worked well for them, what didn't work well for them, and it ultimately just made me more successful
Yeah.
in the long run.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, we're glad to have you. Glad that you're on board and everything's working out great for you. Matthew Knowles, thank you for so much for being on the show. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Put some comments down underneath the video if you want to join the conversation, and we'll talk to you soon.